So you were inaugurated less than a month ago. So what has been kind of the biggest challenge you've faced so far as GUSA outsiders just coming in and kind of learning about it?
I think the biggest sort of obstacle for us is that we started from scratch. It came in after the election, no real platform, no real budget, and no real connections to GUSA. So I think sort of the biggest challenge for us was getting acquainted with GUSA and really getting down to the details of the really important issues at Georgetown, as well as the solutions. And I think we've had a lot of help from both Trevor and other GUSA insiders, which has been great. I don't think we could have done this without Trevor or without Abby's help. So it's just sort of getting that core team together to get us going.
Yeah, and something for me that's been kind of difficult is getting caught up on initiatives that have already been started under Trevor Nomika's administration and following up with that, because us, our cabinet, and our staff are not intimately familiar with the specifics of the issues that they were covering. So to follow up and to push through on those last final steps has been a little bit challenging in that we want to now it's time to get the nitty-gritty of these things done. And because we're not as familiar with the details as people that were involved in the previous administration, it's been a little bit tough. However, the previous administration has been accommodating, and they've been willing to sit down with us and our cabinet and our staff to catch us up on specific policy changes and different university initiatives that they would like to see continue and that they would like to see followed through.
Okay, so in terms of continuity, how much continuity are you striving for from the Trevor Nomika administration, and kind of what things are you prioritizing to kind of follow through from there?
Are you talking about policy changes or just like institutional?
Just the things that they have done that you're working with them to kind of continue and see.
Right. So one big thing that we're trying to continue and change is the Multicultural Council.
Right.
The rollout of that was not ideal, and it's faced a little bit of opposition from different self-identifying cultural groups around campus. Mm-hmm. So not only have we secured them a budget of $1,000 through the executive discretionary budget, but we are working to kind of repair relationships between self-identifying cultural groups and Multicultural Council. That's going to be big this year.
Yeah, one of our biggest, this is one of the first conversations we had actually right after the inauguration was about the Multicultural Council. And we've sat down with the new leadership this year, and we're making it a really big priority for them to sort of carve out a niche on campus. I think a lot of people have been sort of confused as to what their goal is and their overall mission statement, how it's different from the current climate within cultural groups. So this year we're going to work with the leadership a lot to carve out a place for them on campus and make sure that people know what they're there for.
Mm-hmm. Another big change that we're making is SAO. We've completely restructured SAO. So now it includes an Office of Free Speech Advocate. It's going to include Office of the, what do you call it, Intellectual
Health?
Yeah, Office of the Intellectual Health Advocate. Alongside, because SAO's previous job was to focus specifically on conduct cases. So now there's going to be under that, Office of the Student Conduct Advocate, or some variation of these names, to create for, a larger organization based on student advocacy where individual students and groups can come and get help when they need it. And that's going to be headed by Brian Szymanski.
I know that free speech has kind of been a buzzword around campus for the past year or so. How much are you prioritizing that, and what are you guys planning on doing with free speech?
Well, obviously we don't choose the issues which are going to be, buzzing around on campus, but free speech is obviously one of those ones that's come up a lot, in this first month that we've had. So we're placing great priority in making sure that the university's free speech policies are fair and that they are clear.
Right.
So we've worked, a lot with SAO to restructure them to make sure that they're responsive to student needs.
Office of the Free Speech Advocate.
Yes, because we've seen, just in this first month that there is a lot of confusion among administrators, among the student body, as to exactly where the line is on free speech. And we want to make sure that students and administrators are aware of this and the policies are being enforced fairly.
Right. And we have Sam Kleinman for our Secretary for Free Speech. And he has sat on the Speech and Expression Committee, which is in charge of handling the speech and expression policy. One of the things that I do want to do is with this whole G fossil free thing.
There's that smile.
There it is. There's a smile. We definitely want to clarify the speech and expression policy because it's vague whether or not what they did violates speech and expression.
Yeah, right. And they're getting sanctioned.
Well, they haven't been sanctioned yet.
They're in process, and we've been in constant contact with Dr. Olson through this process to make sure that they are being treated.
Yeah,
fairly.
I've had meetings with relevant GUSA posts and with administrators to see how we want to move forward. And I mean, I'm pushing for clarification within the policy, and administrators have responded positively to that. And that will be hashed out in the speech and expression committee. But I think that whether or not they're sanctioned is going to inform how we move forward, because essentially what's going on is two policies are being pit against each other: the speech and expression policy and the code of conduct. So this is a question of how these two policies interact, which is going to be it's interesting to see how this will be navigated. But administrators, for the most part, have been responsive, and they have, I think they definitely recognize the implications of this case.
And we hope that overall there can be a constructive solution.
Yeah.
To the events that take place.
Yeah. Okay. So when you were running, you didn't really have much of a platform besides the mental health initiatives.
Sure.
And a lot of the other people who were running had kind of already talked to a bunch of different student groups and things like that. So kind of, can you tell me about the genesis of creating your platform after you actually won, and who you spoke to? Not the actual ideas, but more about kind of the creation of your plan.
The creation. Have you read our platform?
Where?
I'm sorry. You made it sound like it was a platform.
Just kind of the creation of what would have been your platform if you'd run in a different way.
Right. So, I mean, again, this is what we've been telling people all along. It's the people.
Yes.
There's not a platform.
Yes.
It's the people. And we had so many great applicants. We had 123, so between 123 and 126, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
And that's huge. And we gave everyone interviews. And we have really qualified people. We have a very diverse cabinet. It's something that I think we're very, very proud of.
Yeah.
And tonight, I mean, we sat down with them all once. We had one cabinet staff meeting.
At least once.
Right. We had that once. Then Easter came along, so we didn't have a meeting that Sunday. We're having our meeting tonight, and tonight we're going to hash out, exactly what people want to do this year. And they've all sat down and spoken with their deputy chiefs of staff and have elucidated exactly what they see, what they want to see in a year from now. And I encourage you to come to the meeting tonight and, listen in. On our part, the big things that we want to handle this year are mental health, and we just began that conversation, and we're looking forward to working with the Corp, who has recently established what's
the social impact chair.
Social impact
Harrison.
chair. Yeah. It was wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
I've personally had some very good friends have really unfortunate experiences with mental health on campus. And I want to see to it that is dealt with appropriately. And we recently initiated that conversation with administrators, and we're hoping to see some results.
I would say the other big thing that is part of our platform is about the campus plan.
We've done a lot with that already.
We have. I'd say that's sort of by far one of our biggest focuses in our first month in office. This is something that we didn't choose to put on our plate, but because of the timing, this is going to be something that we're very focused on all year. We've really been committed so far to engaging the student body about what's going on. We want to make sure that their voices are heard during this critical time period.
Right, and we had the petition,
the
campaign for the petition, and the petition going around what?
It was 2631. Yeah, I think that's the final tally.
And last week we presented that to Dr. Ferrara, who's President Joy's chief of staff. And we have been in countless meetings with countless administrators, and we've spoken to neighbors about specifically getting more seats on the GCP steering committee. And a lot of other tenets in the campus plan, what we would like to see, were outlined in a master planning student group findings from Trevor's administration.
We don't see the student engagement ending here with the petition. I mean, this campus plan is a very long-running document. It's not going to be finalized until 2018. So
we need to get our foot in the door, and we need to let them know we need specific asks, and we need to make sure that we stay on top of it, because some of the narrative has been, we still have a while, it's still formula stages, but ultimately we need to start this as soon as possible. This dialogue is critical to creating a better campus plan.
So I didn't know that you guys had already spoken to administrators and kind of presented the findings and the number of signatures, but what has been their reaction thus far? Have they been willing to cooperate? What have they been?
I would say overall the reaction has been very positive. I think everyone involved in the process has understood what the flaws of the last plan and the process of the last plan were. And I think people have shown a really willingness to commit themselves to making sure that this next process is a lot more smooth. So, I mean, one of the biggest things about the petition is just about participation and student representation.
Right.
And I think a lot of people have seen that as a very reasonable request that we have. So right now we're at the state. I think everyone's in agreement about the way that we've been approaching this.
Right. And no, we're not all on the complete same page
Of
about,
course.
and nothing is guaranteed yet.
Yes.
Because it's a very complicated issue with a lot of factors at stake. But, we have had positive dealings with administrators, and we look forward to working to get these things followed through on,
Right.
Wow.
Yeah, and just in general, how has your relationship with administrators been so far, and how do you kind of plan to mark your administration's relationship with them?
I think our relationship with administrators has been very positive so far.
I would like to go hiking with Dr. Todd Olson.
Who wouldn't?
I want to go fishing with Dr. Todd Olson.
I asked him if he wants to go fishing. He told me no.
I feel like
he doesn't like fishing.
I feel like he just hasn't been exposed to it yet. Like he's gonna find out the magic of fishing, and there's no turning back.
Yeah, I gotta say, the people that I've been dealing with, I've enjoyed dealing with.
Yeah, I would say that the administrators we've been dealing with, they seem like they are really committed to student concerns, and that's the reason why they're here, and that's been great to work with so far.
Not to say everybody is, but the vast majority of people are.
Okay. All right, so just to get into your cabinet a little bit, what made you decide to ask for applications for every single person?
Well, we thought we had a pretty unique opportunity with the way that we ran our campaign, in that we came into office not really, owing it. We had staff to do. We didn't really feel like we owed anyone political favors.
Like a core staff to do.
We had a core staff to do. We had a lot of advisors. So we felt as though we had a completely blank slate, and that Gus's reputation around campus had been one of I would say it was either you're in Gussa or you're outside of this. So that there's no middle ground. So we during our first couple of weeks after the election, we spent a lot of that time in meetings with student leaders around with groups who were traditionally not involved in Gussa, and we told them, hey, look, we have a very unique opportunity here to get people involved in representing students. We don't want this to be another round of Gussa insiders. We want to find the people who are most passionate and most committed and engaged with different issue areas on campus and bring them into the fold.
Right, and I think we have about half and half of Gussa and non-Gussa.
49%.
Yeah.
Very good.
Well,
that is around half and half.
Numbers.
Okay, so 67 people is a lot of people, and I've heard concerns about people being worried about how you guys will collaborate effectively with a very, very large group. So are you worried about that? How are you going to combat that problem?
I would say I'm not worried about the size of our cabinet.
Neither am I.
We have our deputy chief of staffs are great.
They are wonderful.
I know it's a lot of people to keep tabs on, but we felt when we were creating new positions that they were representing issue areas which weren't traditionally represented by Gussa. So in bringing all these different areas into the fold, we felt that we were better representing student life. And I have nothing but confidence in our ability to get things done.
Right, exactly. And we have more deputies than Trevor had, than any previous administration had. We have 7. And I think Trevor had 5.
And yours around 5,
Yeah, 4 or 5.
Yeah, and these are people who are great. They have shown nothing but commitment so far, so we're sure.
Great.
No, you're the numbers guy. I keep going to you for the specific numbers.
I love numbers.
Yeah, you're like a math boy.
I know you added a few positions. Minister of Fun is one of them, a few other ones. So why did you add those positions? And can you kind of go into those?
Well, every position had a different reason for being added. The Minister of Fun specifically, Craig Levites, editor-in-chief of the Heckler.
Yeah.
He was added so that he could steer comms in the right way. Our director of communications is Will Simons, who has been so on top of it.
Yeah.
But we still need to have that voice that we had during the campaign in order to connect with people. Yeah. And that's what Craig is responsible for. Yeah. We added a lot of positions specifically aimed towards social justice because that is a huge issue on campus, and we feel like that's something that Gussa hasn't traditionally been in tune with in the past. And we would like to see more collaboration between Gussa and different student groups who have been very vocal. Yeah. Because that the general sentiment on campus needs to be reflected in the organization and to reflect that.
Right. We found it almost ironic. We found it incredibly interesting that some of the most vocal students on campus had no affiliation or interest in student government.
Right.
When student government is supposed to be the ones representing the student voice.
Mm-hmm.
So by bringing those people into the fold, we think we can really increase the advocacy on campus. The other position that we split up was health and safety.
Mm-hmm.
Last year, there just been Secretary of Student Health. So by splitting the health and safety, the secretary and that undersecretary are responsible for both advocating for mental health issues and sexual assault, which were two huge issues on campus that we want to make sure we're getting adequate representation.
And the bottom line, by adding all these people, we get more specialization.
Exactly.
And there are so many problems that aren't being addressed and cannot possibly be addressed when you have more general roles that are dealing with a lot of different issues at once. Because we're full-time students. So with that specialization, I hope that we're going to have more, efficacy.
Yeah, and that's not to say that people in the previous positions were not good at their jobs.
Yeah.
It was just in the previous positions, there just been so many issue areas for them to cover that we felt like they were sacrificing some for others just because they had to.
Yeah. So if you are taking a people-based approach, how much more jurisdiction are you giving kind of the specific cabinet members and staff
We're giving them a
members
lot more
compared to
autonomy this year. We don't want to micromanage them.
No.
We want to be there stride for stride with them.
I want to let them flourish.
Exactly. We want to be the wind in their sails.
Right.
And
we had so many, and that's also part of it. In order to get the right people, in order to give people autonomy, we had to get the right people, and that's why we had such extensive applications.
Right.
Because in order to follow through with that, with that plan of not micromanaging, we need to have faith in the people, and we do.
Great. All right. Let's see.
Let's.
So I know that I was speaking to some people about how one big thing about that you want to kind of involve yourself in is access to benefits. So can you talk about kind of your plans for that in the future?
Well, actually, day one, our first day right after the inauguration, we had the debate about the budget, the Regents case. So we have the money allocated for that. So right off the bat, I feel like we've really made an important step by getting this cage for groups without access to benefits. And this is something that I think we're going to continue to focus on here.
And we have a cabinet position now specifically for unrecognized groups. Mm-hmm. So a lot of access to benefits, expansion of tiered access to benefits is going to be handled by that individual.
Yeah.
Okay. What do you hope your relationship with the Senate to be? Because I know that there have been kind of strained Senate relationships in the past.
Much better. Yeah. And we had our first meeting with the Senate was contentious because it was the budget.
The budget.
But since then, there has been more collaboration. Today, we approved a change in the bylaws that will allow for the Senate to attend our cabinet meetings. Mm-hmm. And, we need more coordination, cooperation, and communication with the Senate. The three big C's.
Yeah. We'd really like to bring them to the fold as much as possible. It doesn't make sense, especially in student government, to have two separate entities working completely separate from each other.
And on a lot of the same issues, too.
And on the exact same issues. Yeah. So if we can just increase the productivity, increase the synergy.
I love that synergy.
That's actually what synergy
Let's make a PowerPoint about it.
Increase the synergy.
Right.
That's what it boils down to, is increasing the synergy.
We should just start answering these with one-word buzzwords.
Synergy.
Yeah, that's a good one. Okay.
Cross-cutting cleavages.
The worst one. Okay, so we kind of saw this year a rise of the popularity of, humor and the heckler and improv on campus, kind of that coincided with your rise to GUSA. So people do want to know what's happening kind of with your prior commitments. I know that the heckler has a new staff, a new executive staff, and improv and things like that, and kind of what are you doing with it?
So about a week after the election or so, Connor and I stepped down from leadership positions within the heckler.
And that's been satisfied by Craig Levites is the new editor-in-chief, and Thomas Moakley.
Thomas
Weston Moakley is the new managing editor.
We didn't feel as though we were able to commit the time to creating the quality product that people have become to expect an effort to be.
Right.
As far as improv goes, though,
we're still sticking with it.
We are still part of improv. We're not in board positions this year. I was publicity director this year.
I was business manager.
So we will not be in leadership positions in that capacity, but we will still be on stage once a month.
Okay.
And you should come see it. Hey, next Saturday, improv show.
And just to kind of take that...
this Saturday. Well, in 6 days.
Yeah.
It's just to take that direction.
April 18th.
Yeah, sure.
How are you going to change kind of the communications approach from the past GUSA executive groups? to make it more kind of you?
Well, this is where we see the Minister of Fun, coming into play. I found it pretty easy right off the bat to get sucked into GUSA and the nitty gritties of student advocacy, and just it's really important for us to make sure that we stay true to the reason why we're elected.
Right.
Is that we engage people in a way that was fun and that they wanted to listen. So by keeping this tone constant throughout the year, we really hope to change the culture and the way that people view GUSA.
And like a non-pretentious tone,
Exactly.
which is
That's
part of
very
the problem of GUSA. Nobody wants to go to something called like campus planning, master workshop or something.
Mm-hmm.
But they will come to next Wednesday. We're having Scream at GUSA about stuff, which is going to be a town hall discussion where you guys get to scream at us about what you want.
You don't have to scream. Screaming is not
You
required.
can even whisper.
You could whisper. You can hold up signs.
You can write
Doesn't
notes,
matter.
telegrams.
We can accept any forms of
But
communication.
ultimately, it's getting back to roots and community, making sure that we're engaging people and that we do what they want us to do, and not us seeing problems and going off on our own like us has done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a sign over there that says it's just student government.
And it is.
And it is just student government.
So there hasn't been too much of a kind of humor component to your campaign for the campus plan petition. Was there a reason that you chose to make it a little bit more serious and to kind of start it off that way?
Well, obviously we couldn't make it one large, joke, but we tried to create a comedic element to it, but it just didn't pan out in terms of timing. I mean that's something that I'm a little disappointed that we didn't get around to during the petition period, but I would say going forward, we're going to hope to continue to engage in the way that we did during our campaign.
Yeah. It's just, we, during the campaign, had a lot of time to focus on... Humor takes time. And when we're doing,
You saw our Google Calendar.
yeah, we can't be as hands-on with it as we have been in the past. And a lot of that is delegated to comms. But ultimately, I think that moving forward, what we learned from the campus plan petition and from the fact that humorous element wasn't as infused in the dialogue as we wish it was, that should be one of our priorities moving forward, and that we should have more of a hand in, the humorous side of communications.
Do you see that humor has its limitations? And have you faced any of those yet, or expect to?
No, we knew that going into this. It didn't come as a surprise. We can't sit down with an administrator going over policy goals and
character.
In character.
We understand that it only works to an extent. If we want to get really real things done this year, we have to be serious. And while I wish I could be telling jokes all day long, we recognize that this is only one element.
It works for communications. It works for outreach. It works for keeping otherwise miserable meetings light. It works for every once in a while lightening the mood in administrative dealings. But ultimately, when it comes to policy, there is a separation between taking things lightly and taking things seriously. And ultimately, even though I think that humor can be very, very serious, usually it's not fitting.
And then just coming on to the last few weeks of school with finals and everything, what are your major priorities just for that kind of last final push?
I think what we really like going forward, especially with this CAD meeting tonight, is to hammer out a timeline. Make sure that because it's very easy to get sucked into, we still have lots of time this year to get things done.
Because we don't.
Because ultimately we don't. So we need to make sure that when we have these initial meetings with our staff and our CAF.
Our staff and our CAF?
Man, words are so hard.
Also, well, all right, we have a cabinet and a staff, but you guys haven't reported at all about the staff and the CAF.
Yeah.
This is the second time in 24 hours that you've made that mistake also.
Yeah, words are so hard sometimes, consistently. But making sure that with our cabinet and our staff that we have a timeline for how we're going to get things done.
And can you guys talk a little bit about your leadership style and kind of how you're planning to lead your group, small army of almost 70 people?
Joe and I have very different leadership styles.
Go on. Go on.
Joe is like a compromiser, and he's
I go
very
with consensus builder.
Yeah, he's a consensus builder. Yeah, absolutely. And I'm a little bit more of a bull.
I like to take input. I like to hear all sides.
Good.
I like to get people talking and come into agreement.
And I like to focus on the issues.
Connor has.
I like to hammer things out.
Connor, that's Connor's dad. And I think we work well together.
Yeah, I think we work great together. Yeah.
Yeah.
We haven't been annoyed with each other yet.
Mm-hmm. We'll get there. Don't worry.
Yeah. We're
Eventually, we'll be at each other's throats, but not yet.
All right. I asked about your priorities for kind of the last few weeks, but just on a really grand macro level, what are your priorities for the entire term?
I think it's something that we sort of touched on earlier in the interview, but
Yeah.
I think something that specifically falls on Gus's shoulders, whether we like it or not, is the campus plan.
Campus planning,
And then
mental health.
I would say there's specific issue areas on campus that, because of just how serious the effects are, it's very important for us to be engaged with in every step of the way. And those are things like mental health.
Yeah, one thing that I'd like to engage a little bit more with is disability.
Disability
Because
access.
Lydia Brown, who has been
Oh.
fantastic,
Wow.
is make my heart
Wow. He's still my heart.
is leaving, and there's such a big void.
Mhm.
And it's something that personally touches me. I have a lot of friends who identify as people with disabilities, and I see the struggle that they've gone through as a result of entities that are not accommodating. And ultimately, Georgetown is not ADA compliant and needs to get there. And that's a component of campus planning.
Yeah.
Because we want to strive for universal accessibility, but I think that's definitely something that I personally would like to have a hand in this year.
So one thing is that you guys were the first satirical candidates ever win these elections. So are you kind of worried that kind of public perception will change? Some people who don't read La Jolla and read all of our coverage don't really know anything about you guys other than how you won and what your platform was like.
Yeah.
So do you want to what kind of perception, this is hard. How do you want people to view you at the end of your term that is very different than when you first ran? Like, what do you want your overall, I don't want to say legacy because that's too
Legacy,
big of a
oh wow.
word, but what do you want that to be?
To be honest, I don't really care how people perceive it. I just wanted to get things done.
If people are engaged in, issues on campus and advocacy on campus, then we'll engage with them, and we will work tirelessly.
It's not about, the thing is, it's not about us.
And it's not, it depends on people, how informed people want to be. And the more informed they are, the more they'll see how we're operating this year.
Yeah.
And if they only see sort of the superficial image that I think, you could trickle down from the campaign, then that's fine.
Okay, last question. What are you most excited for in the future in this position?
The future in this position. I'm most excited.
That's the hardest question you've asked. Most excited for? I'm excited for producing a new round of leaders.
I guess I'm excited to just be engaged with different areas of campus that I otherwise would have no interactions with. I think just in this first month or so, I have met so many different people, and people have had so many different Georgetown experiences that I ever knew about. Going into this, I thought, I totally understand what Georgetown is about. I feel as though
I did not.
Well, to much more extent than I did now.
Yeah.
I felt as though I had a pretty good handle on what it meant to go to Georgetown, and now I understand that there is no such thing as the typical Georgetown experience. And to be able to engage with all those different types of Georgetown experiences is weird. I'm really excited for that.
Yeah, this is a crash course in Georgetown. And I feel like it's personally connecting me more to the institution and to the people, and it's giving me a much better view of not only how things work, but how things have functioned historically and what this university means. And that it'll be really interesting to see how that perception develops throughout the year.